we wanted to look at parks. These are the parks. So you mentioned people resisted or didn't want
Sure.
their land turned into maybe parks, or?
Well, actually, it's these parks are really interesting, and you see a mixture of seemingly traditionally Japanese-looking gardens, as well as modern, quote-unquote, Western-style parks. And it's actually in these Western-style parks, especially the Hibiya Park, or for that matter, the large space in front of the Imperial Palace, that up until the 1920s, really, were oftentimes sites of political protests or political pageantry. So events that government frowned upon, as well as events that were oftentimes promoted by the government to conjure up support for wars and things like that. So while these particular images are very picturesque, it's worth keeping in mind that to the eyes of the Japanese who were seeing these images in this period, they would have known the full connotation or the full context in which these places were gaining significance as modern spaces.
You know, isn't it also true that when they sat down after the earthquake and really thought they could do a rationally planned city, because it was pretty leveled, that one of the things was to have wide avenues and wide open spaces to prevent those fires from raging through the metropolis once again, because they would almost be fire breaks. Isn't that true?
Absolutely, and some of those, especially roads that encircle Tokyo, some of those were made. I think one of them is Yasukuni Street, Yasukuni Dori, that goes all the way from the Imperial Palace to Yasukuni Shrine and then out towards the outskirts of the city. Some of those were built, but they were never built to the complete sort of phase that was originally envisioned by Goto and others.
It's very interesting. You also have the land that was freed up after during the Meiji period, formerly held by daimyo, that became parks. At first, only slightly available to the public, and later more largely so. So there's a lot of greenery in Tokyo today, thanks to that.
And Goto wanted more greenery,
Yeah.
and he got some of it, but it didn't quite work out nearly as much as he thought. It's interesting that Tokyo goes through these cycles of destruction and attempts at recreating new spaces or introducing new order. This will happen after World War II again. This will happen in the preparation for the 1964 Olympics, where neighborhoods are raised and so forth. But there's always this back and forth between a kind of centralized top-down replanning or re-engineering the city and a resistance from the bottom.
So it's one of the really interesting ways that a location or a site, it looked at over time, like we're doing in this MOOC, can open up the kind of tensions that exist in moving forward
Absolutely.
in a city.